I'd like to call to order the annual town meeting for the town of Merrimac, April 28th, 2014. This is one which you can follow either in the Town Finance Committee's report, hard copies of which were being handed out as you came in. They're identical, I hope, to what was on the website, because I took one from the website. And I'll call upon Patty Dillon, who chairs the Finance Committee. There isn't really a mic there, but oh, there it is. It is. Yeah, use the one that Carol has. There are not in the finance. I would just ask people who are looking in the handouts. There are not page numbers, unfortunately, but if you flip enough pages, you get to one that says Annual Town Meeting. And it is a grid that shows all 22 articles. And those of you who are working at home, I feel like Johnny Carson. You can see the grid, which looks different than all the other pages. That's where the outline is of the annual town meeting. And right behind it is an even more detailed grid, which is the omnibus article. The 92 lines which make up the basic spending of town. So we're going to be going through that 3 pages of omnibus as part of Article 1. Patty.
Before I actually start with the motion and the omnibus, I just want to encourage anybody in town to consider joining the Finance Committee. We have a total of 9 slots available. We currently have 6 members. And we're supposed to be kind of a mirror of the town voters. And you can see myself and the others over there. I actually am the only one with a child in the school district, for example. So we could certainly use some younger members to join the group, as well as we don't have any senior citizens either. So we encourage anybody to please consider joining the Finance Committee. We do our work principally between January and April. And it's a good activity to learn about what's going on in town. If you are interested, you just send an email or talk after the meeting tonight to Bob Bender. The town moderator actually appoints the Finance Committee members. So thank you for considering that. So Article 1, I move that the town vote to fix the salary and compensation of all elective officers of the town as provided by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 108, as amended. Town clerk, 3 assessors, 3 commissioners of municipal light, and raise, appropriate, or transfer sums of money, therefore, and to determine sums of money raised to be transferred to defray the necessary and usual charges and expenses of the town for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2014, and make appropriations for the same said sums of money to so raised, appropriated, or transferred to be expended for specific purposes to be voted.
Okay, before we go, this is like the we did with the special town meeting. There are about 8 or 10 sections in the omnibus. Even though it's 92 lines on the 3 pages, you can see that there are paragraphs, so to speak. And so we're going to go paragraph by paragraph to see if there are any holes. All right, but rather than reading each line individually, we're going to ask Patty to read the total for sets of lines. If you have any questions, just to indicate. Thank you.
Great. So maturing debt, lines 1 through 4. Total maturing debt, $375,850.
Okay. I didn't quite add. If you look at the 1, 2, 3, 4th column from the right, that's what you're reading from, right?
I am reading from the 4/28/14 FY 2015 requested budget. That's the requested budget for town floor.
Okay. That's sort of a little darker headline. Column 3 from the right.
Yes, it's the third column from the right. So what you'll see here is the previous budgets. You'll also see what the departments requested, which is about, 6 lines over. You'll see any changes that the FinCom requests, changes the FinCom has recommended compared to the departmental request. And then I'm actually reading the requested budget, which is 42814, the top of the column.
Everybody see where we are? All right. Are there any questions about lines 1 to 4? All right, go on to the next set.
Interest on maturing debt, lines 5 through 8. Total interest, $102,470.
Any questions or holds? All right, next, unclassified.
Unclassified, lines 9 through 22, with the total unclassified, $939,964.
Any question or hold on any of those lines, 9 to 22?
General government, lines 23, and then moving on to the next page, all the way through line 52. Total general government, $591,196.
Any question on any of that? General government? All right.
Public safety, lines 53 through 67, for a total public safety of $1,670,678.
Any question here? Police, fire, EMT, inspectional services, and parking clerks? All right.
Okay, health and sanitation, lines 68 through 73, for a total health and sanitation of $94,195.
Any questions here? All right, we'll go on to line highway department.
Highway department, lines 74 through 77, for total highway of $620,536.
Any questions on those line items? 74 to 77? All right, go on.
Public assistance, lines 78 through 83, for a total public assistance of $339,071.
Any questions or hold on those? Next.
Public education, lines 83 through 88, for a total
84,
public,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, you,
Line 84.
Oh,
not
I'm sorry.
83,
line 84 through 88, for total public education of $7,752,362.
These are the assessments for Whittier and for Pawtucket and the Essex North Shore. We'll return to vote on those when we complete this. Next.
Library, line 89 through 90, for total library of $269,495.
Any questions or hold on the library? All right, and last.
Cemetery, lines 91 and 92, for a total of $48,277 for cemetery.
Any questions about those two? Cemetery?
And the total omnibus being $12,804,094.
Second.
All right. We will take up a vote of the entire, but by our regional agreements, it's our practice to vote for Whittier's request, their assessment, for Pawtucket's assessment, and we now have an Essex North Shore tuition. We'll have separate votes for those so that we can say that we did or didn't approve those assessments. Like the borrowing, the number of towns in the district are added together and to see if the whole budget has been approved by the right number of towns. So first we'll come up with the Whittier assessment. It's a total assessment of $640,424. line 84 and 85. All in favor of the Whittier assessment? All opposed? I see none opposed. It's approved unanimously. Line 86, 87 is the Pentucket assessment. Total of $7,035,050. All in favor of that assessment? All opposed? It is approved unanimously. And line 88, the Essex North Shore tuition, $76,888. All in favor? All opposed? It is approved unanimously. All right. Last chance. Does anyone have any questions on lines 1 to 92? Then we'll bring the Article 1 omnibus budget to a vote. It takes a simple majority. All in favor of our raising and appropriating money as outlined in these 92 lines, a total of $12,804,000 plus $94. All in favor? All opposed? It is approved unanimously. Congratulations.
Article 2. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money to operate the wastewater department enterprise. Salaries, $341,802. Expenses, $536,128. Debt service, $206,030. Total, $1,083,960. And that $1,083,960 be raised as follows. Department receipts, $1,033,960. Wastewater Betterment Fund, $50,000.
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded concerning the budget for the wastewater department enterprise. It's basically what we used to call the sewer department, and this is their budget for the year. It's funded by departmental receipts, sewer fees, and wastewater betterment fund. Are there any questions or discussion? All right, then all in favor of the motion to raise and appropriate $1,083,960? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Article 3. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money to operate the water department enterprise. Salaries, $296,106. Expenses, $429,805. Debt service, $306,772. Total, $1,032,683. And that $1,032,683 be raised as follows. Departmental receipts, $1,032,683.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve raising and appropriating for the water department enterprise $1,032,683 from the water department receipts. Is there any question or discussion? And all in favor of the motion? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, Article 4. I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds a sum of money in the amount of $10,000 from the electric light operating balance, said money to be used by the assessors to reduce the tax rate for the fiscal year 2015.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded under Article 4 to accept $10,000 from the electric light operating balance to be applied to the tax rate for the new fiscal year. Any questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, Article 5. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $10,740 to be expended by the Board of Assessors to hire a consultant to perform an independent reevaluation.
Second.
All right, so moved and seconded that we Again, raise and appropriate $10,740 for the Board of Assessors to hire a consultant to, towards their every third year independent revaluation. Any questions about the process for getting a consultant here? All in favor then of appropriating $10,740? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, Article 6, I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds known as sale of cemetery lots a sum of money in the amount of $2,600 to be expended under the direction of the cemetery trustees for the care, improvement, and embellishment of said cemeteries in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 114, Section 15, and Section 25.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we transfer from the sale of cemetery lots $2,600 to be used by the cemetery trustees for care at the cemetery. Any questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, Article 7, I move that the town vote to accept the state grant of Chapter 90 highway funds and authorize the Board of Selectmen to expend said funds for highway purposes in accordance with the terms of said grants.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we accept money from the state under Chapter 90 highway funds, authorize the selectmen to spend such money in terms of the state requirements. Any question or discussion? Yes, sir. I can't hear you, sir. Do we know how much money is involved? Is that your question?
Well, it originally started out at $300,000, if my memory serves me correctly, but then the governor cut $1 million or $10 million, $100 million out of the budget. So we lost $100,000. So we're now down. It's $200,000. Oh, 187, even worse.
All right. Any other questions? All in favor of using the Chapter 90 money? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, Article 8, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money in the amount of $185,000 for solid waste collection and disposal, recycling collection, and leaf collection, and that $185,000 to be raised as follows: raise and appropriate $90,000, transfer from trash offset receipts $95,000.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded regarding our solid waste collection, disposal, recycling collection, leaf collection, to raise and appropriate $185,000 or transfer money from trash offset receipts. It would be $90,000 raised and appropriate for tax rate, $95,000 from offset receipts, the sale of trash stickers. Any question or discussion? And all in favor then of the motion on Article 8? All opposed? It's approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, to establish revolving funds for the departments for the specific purpose outlined above for the fiscal year 2015.
All right, if people open up, you see that
Second that.
there are a number A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K of revolving funds. These are funds that we have to, we're asked to authorize each year. The state allows money to be held for certain purposes so that fees that come in can be used for specific purposes. And that's what they call revolving. The money kind of revolves through like a checking account. And we set limits on how much money can be used in this way. So if people have the list in front of them, I'm just going to read the name of the fund, and unless there's any questions, we'll go on to the next one. A is the Police Firearms Revolving Fund. Any questions about that? B is the Zoning Board of Appeals Revolving Fund for, it's basically helping the expenses of the zoning board. Any questions about that? C is the Board of Health's Town Nurse Revolving Fund, help pay for materials in the Board of Health program for the town nurse. Any questions there? D is the Parks and Rec Revolving Fund. This has nothing to do with the TV show, but to use the money that they raise for the enhancement of the town's fields and parks. Any questions there? E is the Building Code Compliance Enforcement Revolving Fund, that fees that are paid for permits, for building permits, wiring permits, electrical, plumbing, gas, and so forth, and money that's collected will be used to help the cost of the building commissioner. Any questions about that? F is the Board of Health project revolving fund. This is concerning the work that they have to do at Bear Hill and Quail Ridge, Battis Road subdivisions. Any questions about that? And G is update fund for the assessor's maps. Any question on this? H is the Village of Merrimac project revolving fund. This is using developers' fees for the Village of Merrimac, pay for plan reviews and so forth in the building of that project. Any questions on there? And we have I, the Board of Health revolving fund. This is using the funds from inspections before housing units can be rented. Any questions about this, Parliament? J is the Inspectional Services Inspection Revolving Fund, using money raised from doing inspections to help pay the costs of doing inspections, building, wiring, plumbing, and gas. Any questions? And last is K, the Senior Center Meals Revolving Fund, that any of the fees that are collected from the Amesbury and Merrimack Housing Authority for their weekend meals program. Any questions or discussion of that? All right, then bring the motion to approve the reestablishment of these funds, A through K. All in favor of these revolving funds? All opposed? All right. The motion on Article 9 is adopted unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money in the amount of $80,000 for additional closure activities at the Battis Road landfill.
Second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we raise and appropriate for this year $80,000 for costs involved in the closure of the landfill. Are there any questions or discussion on that? I believe there was a handout outside as you came in as the Battis Road. All right, we bring that to a vote. All in favor of the $80,000 appropriation? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate from available funds a sum of money in the amount of $104,180 for the purchase of a case backhoe with accessories for the DPW department, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a 5-year lease to purchase agreement.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we raise and appropriate $104,180 to buy a backhoe from the Case Company with accessories for use of the Department of Public Works, and the Board of Selectmen intend to enter into a 5-year lease to purchase agreement for this. Any questions or discussion about this purchase? Are all in favor then of raising and appropriating the money to buy this backhoe from Case? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator,
Yeah. I was just going to say, before we go on, We're moving into a little different set of articles now. And as the motions are read, we'll entertain any discussion people have. Article 12.
Mr. Moderator, I move to table Article 12.
All right, as we discussed earlier, is there a second?
Second.
As we discussed earlier, a motion to table in this town is to not do any business on this article on the agenda at all in the town meeting. So we require a 2/3 vote to take no action. This concerns the property at 28 School Street, originally the fire station, and then the Council on Aging, for a little time Town Hall. And are there any questions or discussion as to whether we should take any action at this time or not take the action? The selectmen want to say anything about this? Sir? Why table it? That was my question. Does anyone have a...
Well, you may recall that we discussed this a year ago at the Springtown meeting. And at that point, a citizens group had approached the Board of Selectmen and asked if we would consider tabling the article in order for them to form a committee to look into the feasibility of being able to for the town to retain the property, but be able to revitalize it. For various reasons, the committee wasn't able to really get much traction, due in no small part to the fact that our fire chief, Ralph Spencer, had gotten rather ill, and a couple of key members of that group had to jump in to be able to take over his duties while he was recovering. So we met just before town meeting with a group headed by members of the Merrimac Hose Company, who would like to take this up again with under some rather strict controls, or recommendations, I should say, by the Board of Selectmen, that they be reporting back to this board, every month or two, to give us an update as to where they are going with this, so that we have a better idea come the fall town meeting as to whether or not it seems reasonable and realistic that their group will be able to be in a position to raise the funds necessary to be able to rehabilitate the property, or if in fact the Board of Selectmen should move forward at that point with creating a request for proposals to try to solicit bids for some private, sensible development of the property.
This is
All right, you go ahead, Al.
This is the fire company. That's the group we're talking about. Elements of the fire company have come forward again as a whole. They have ideas of redoing that place and putting the recently retired fire engine in there, and also bringing a couple of the old hand tubs back in and turn it into kind of a fire museum. That's what they want to do with it. They don't know how they're going to do it. We told them we need to see some action moving forward in order to keep supporting it, and that's the reason we asked to table it tonight.
Another point that I'd like to make, Mr. Moderator.
Yep.
If they're successful in figuring out how they can raise some funding to fix the building, they're going to be working with Mr. Sinibaldi on this. What we're hoping is at that point we'll be able to, the town will retain the building. It will still belong to the town of Merrimac, but the hose company, which is a 501c3 charitable organization, will pay for the upkeep and the use of the building. So this would be a win-win for everybody. We'd be able to keep this historic structure as part of our community, but at the same time, it would offer the hose company a place to put their things. So we're hoping that it works out for everybody. So we've we're asking you to allow us to table this motion until further, perhaps the fall.
Any other question or discussion about whether to take this up or not? All right, then, all in favor of tabling? All opposed? It is unanimous, it is tabled.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the town Merrimac zoning bylaws, Article 3, by adding the new section 3.11 as above.
Yes, Mr. Sinibaldi. All right, there's a motion from the building, from Mr. Sinibaldi of the Department of Public Works that put forward this proposed bylaw about accessory structures, that we table it to get it written a little bit better. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Is there any discussion or question about postponing this so it can be better written? Or all in favor? Yes, sir. Well, if it's put on to the warrant again by the selectmen, we'll take it up at the next town meeting. Well, I would think that the person who wrote it the first time was going to do a little better at checking into other towns, how they do this wording, maybe checking with the people we just hired to look at our bylaws to see what they offer as far as these. You know, Merrimac doesn't actually invent bylaws. We try to use ones that have been working in other towns and make them fit the language of our bylaws. So the request is can we get some more time to get the homework done? All right. Are there any other questions about whether or not we should table? All in favor of tabling Article 13? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the Town of Merrimac general bylaws by adding a new Article 36, yard sales as above.
Yes? Yeah. All right.
Second.
All right, well, we can move to table it. If it's going to be on the fall warrant, the selectmen will have to put it on the warrant. Any discussion about this? The indication is there is some language missing here on how to have this bylaw enforced. Who is actually going to do the enforcement work? Yes, sir.
Yes, John Adams, First Mill Road, Merrimac. I just wanted to ask the group here today to not table this amendment because we have a lot of places in town that are congested and clogged with traffic because of people that are having accidents every weekend. And one of them is on my street, and I'm kind of tired of cars pulling and turning around my driveway, leaking oil, and cracking the edge of my driveway. And I asked that the selectmen to find a way to fit this in today, and if possible, maybe find a way to do the permits another way, but to get this in the town meeting today. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Does anyone else want to speak as to whether we should take up this article today? This is an amendment of an existing bylaw, an improvement, I would hope. Yes. Does anyone have any further discussion as to whether we should take up this proposed bylaw? Yes, ma'am. Mhm. Okay.
The selectmen and the DPW agree with you, and that's the whole reason for bringing this up. The reason for seeking to table it perhaps is to fine tune it, to put some teeth in it. That's the only reason, so keep that in mind.
Anyone else? Well, sir, you, go ahead.
This was tabled last fall, actually, and to table it again until this fall, it was after the sales season, and I've seen, as my wife said, many near misses as far as traffic on my street, and I think that tabling it till fall is just basically filing it from search of file, and that if we need to put teeth into the amendment, we should probably bring it up at town meeting and fine tune the amendment, but deal with it today. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, can you stand up? It'll be a little easier for people to hear you. Well, the question is what is the current, what can be done currently under our bylaws and general police powers? Are you going to answer that, Mr. Sinibaldi, or? Well, I mean, okay, the question, well, can you run by the mic, because people aren't hearing. What he's saying is the situation, the particular situation being described on Birch Meadow, there's a recurring, 14 sales that were run in the same area?
Yeah, they well exceeded what would be normally considered maybe a spring cleanup, and before winter comes, we'll clean out the garage. So the only problem with the bylaw that was written is it puts an awful lot of responsibility on the Board of Selectmen's administrator. She would be issuing the permits, and amongst the day-to-day chores that she has currently, it would be overwhelming. However, I support it in its form. It would be nice maybe if we could amend it. I certainly would like to find an avenue to move it forward and maybe modify it as it progresses to finding out who would issue the permits. We spend far too much time on Mondays going around picking up yard sale signs with no method of enforcing. These people leave their signs out. Then we constantly pick up and spend time collecting the debris that nobody wanted to buy, that now becomes the DPW's problem of disposing. So it's getting old hat, and it's costing the ratepayer in town here money. So if at all possible, and we attempt this, I certainly don't mind moving forward, and maybe even my department taking it on and issuing these permits and playing it and seeing how it goes. Because I feel that it is long overdue, and it's an abuse that occurs a lot in this community.
Would it be possible, Bob, to make these particular individual or persons or whatever register as a business, doing business as, and then they would have to come under various qualifications in the zoning bylaw regarding a business?
Well, usually a lot of these a lot of these wouldn't be permitted in those particular zones.
Well, a
So-
lot of them wouldn't be permitted, I think perhaps one that we're discussing probably wouldn't be permitted under, these either, when it came to the being reviewed by the public safety people. This is why I'm wondering if you did it as a DBA, and then they may not even qualify to do that. If they have X amount, would be considered a business.
I certainly don't think this is a tool that we're looking to punish
Okay.
people that want to do maybe one or two a year.
Well,
This
if
is definitely
I
to
wouldn't
control
mean
the
that one
people
or
that are
two a
looking to do
year
it as a
would
business.
require a DBA. But maybe if you said anyone that did more than, I don't know, how many have you got in here? 5 or 6 or something?
No, 2 would be good.
2, okay, 2. If they're doing more than 2, maybe 3 or whatever a year, then they must register as a business and be able to meet the requirements in a particular zone for that business. Would that work?
Excuse me. Folks, the motion in front of us right now is should we take this up tonight or not? And rather than getting into the deep teeth of what it ought to say, which is really taking it up tonight, can we discuss, can we live without taking it up tonight or not? If the answer is we can't, we have to take it up, then we'll decide to take it up. If it's we can't take it up, we won't take it up. So, the other thing to add on, can we take it up tonight or not take it up tonight?
Well, if at all possible, then I suppose I'd like to reconsider the motion to table.
Well, we haven't approved it yet, but, all right.
Withdraw your motion.
Taking that as let's get on with it, we will table the motion to table and go ahead and discuss this motion. The motion was made that we amend the town general bylaws to add a new section concerning yard sales. It'd be Article 36 XXXBI for you Super Bowl fans. People have a copy of this language in front of them from the screen? All right. There really are four different sections. One is on making a requirement that people get a permit no less than a week before the yard sale through the selectman's office, and it sets forth what are the types of things that are necessary to show in order to get a permit, or what is the Board of Selectmen looking for. Parking, pedestrian safety, traffic control, hours, any other conditions, police department looking at how these things are being done, and so forth. The types of issues that were being discussed about the one in concern here. Section 2 would say that no person or site can have more than 2 permits per year, calendar year. No more than 4 signs can be put around town, and they shall be taken down, and so forth, as Mr. Sinibaldi was mentioning. Section 3 is, of course, the selectmen will establish how much does a yard sale permit cost, and hold the owner of the property, whether they were the ones running the sale or not, responsible for making sure there's a permit. And 4, if there's a violation, what the penalty should be. People have any questions about the bylaw? Yes, sir, in the back.
So I'm Dave Sherwood, 28 Emerald Street. So first, I got to start with I apologize that he has
Yeah.
trouble with somebody who yard sales, but it sounds to me like we have an illegal business running. We have laws against illegal businesses. So we're going to punish the rest of our citizens for some illegal business that's been run in town. Look, I've not attended a yard sale or held a yard sale in the better part of 15 or 20 years, so I don't speak like I want to hold one. But let's get on this list. On-site parking. What's next? My Christmas party? I can't have 10 cars out front of my house. I'm going to have to hire a detail from the police department? Please, you got to be kidding me. Traffic and pedestrian safety, same issue. Guys, look, we teach our kids to cross the road every day, and we're concerned about them at yard sales? So the first 4 articles have to do with traffic and pedestrian safety. I don't think this is something our Board of Selectmen needs to address. Let's go over to the next page. No more than 2 permits a year. What's after that? Are you going to limit the amount of permits I'm allowed to have? Building permits I'm allowed to have? I think it's irresponsible that you come to us and ask us to approve this and you don't have a fee schedule prepared for us. I think this needs a lot more work. I'm certainly not in favor of it, even with a lot more work, but I think you got some work to do, guys.
Is that anyone, yep, I was gonna say, does anyone else?
I have one more thing to say.
All right.
As far as currently, if this isn't really difficult, if you want to do some enforcement on people not taking down their signs, hey, how about we fine them for littering? Guess what? Their address is right on the sign. They're not going to be hard to find.
We realize that.
Is that-
And part of the problem, and part of the impetus
Go
for
ahead,
this,
Al.
part of the impetus for this is the present bylaws that we have, regulation that we have on it, is very ineffective. And this is the first attempt at trying to get the problem straight. It's a problem in a few areas in town. And it's not so much the signs, okay, but it's some of them are being run as regular businesses, that's true.
And there are other ways that you can, have yard sales outside of the 2 that, for the permits. I know that there's generally a yard sale that the Old Home Days Committee runs. So for a nominal fee, that would be something that you could participate in outside of the 2. And I know that the Lions Club has a big yard sale. There's another one, again, for a nominal fee, and it goes to a good purpose. So there's 4. And you can always get together with with a friend or a neighbor occasionally and have one, and it wouldn't be considered a business. So it's not like you're being punished. What we're trying to do is to limit those who are taking advantage of the goodwill of their neighborhood, their neighbors, and as far as, I know it's cute about, parking cars at Christmas and so forth. It really comes down to a safety issue, whether you're having a party or whether you're having friends over or it's a yard sale. Let's face it, if you're on the corner, as I am on the corner, you have to be aware that traffic is coming around, and if people are getting in and out of cars, are you going to be able to see them? It is a safety issue that we have to consider, and we have to take responsibility for that. We don't want to see anybody get injured. It's not necessarily a child. Somebody's getting out of a car, opens the door suddenly, another car comes along and doesn't see them. There's just so many things that could possibly happen. So we're trying to be responsible here, no, jokes aside, and try to solve a problem that's a real issue in our community.
All right, does anyone else want to speak as to this bylaw? Yes, sir.
Jeff Yates at Little Pond Road. It seems like this is an illegal business in an area that's not zoned for business. And I think we should use the existing mechanisms that we have to deal with that instead of creating something new. So let's just use the, go after these people. It's an illegal business. Have them shut it down. All right. And then if we want to work on changing the existing yard sale bylaws, well, let's do that for everybody else. But let's first take care of the immediate problem, which is this illegal business that's going on. We don't need to spend time on bylaws for that.
Mr. Sinibaldi, what,
Sir,
Bob, what avenues have been taken to take care of the problems in some of the sites around town that have been, I mean, what's been the difficulties dealing with the problems?
Yeah, Bob, I can't really hear much of what you're saying, and you have a plan for dealing with this particular site, is that what you're addressing? All right, does anyone else want to speak on this? All right. Yes. Len?
Len Batchelder on School Street. I feel that this is an unwarranted imposition and detraction from the freedom of a person to do what they want on their property. We're trying to address a specific problem, and Laura mentioned some traffic problems also. This is not the way to address those problems. By putting arbitrary restrictions, by using a mechanism of a bylaw regulating yard sales to solve these other problems, that's not the way to do it. We need to address the real problem, not an artificial one. And we need to be careful anytime we take any freedoms away from anybody to do what they wish to with their property.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question related to what the woman up here said. I don't know if there's, because I haven't read it yet, the bylaws, if there's a nuisance clause, and if this would fall under that for the people that violate what some of us might consider reasonable common sense. Because, you know, if you don't have a law against having yard sales, the person having the yard sale can say, hey, I'm having a yard sale and there's no law against it and you can't do anything to me. In actuality, they're right, probably, if the legal counsel would say that. But
there are state laws about public nuisance.
right.
Whether the situation fits that or not, you know, perhaps a better lawyer than me could tell you, but Whether we have a bylaw in town that corresponds to that, I'm not sure. Bob? This is in the zoning bylaw. All right, one more.
I tried calling the Merrimac police to find out what exactly, because I know you do need a permit for yacht sale, we get a permit when we have one, you know, for 20 years. So they weren't getting a permit, so I thought that would be violation, but they said that there's nothing they could do, they directed me to the selectmen. And I called the selectmen, and they said, well, there's nothing on the books of it right now, so we're just looking for something to be enforced. Stop that, I don't know the right way to get it done, and it sounds like he's willing to help, but it's just a little something against something enforcing on it.
All
Bob,
right.
does the current bylaw require a permit?
Yes.
It does? Chief, cheers. What would you do if you got a phone call from a citizen in town, wanted to know about, I mean, that's the question she's wanted to answer. She, you know.
Okay,
Sure.
we will certainly allow the chief of police to answer the question.
This is a difficult issue. One, we're trying to write a bylaw on town meeting floor. I see some issues with the way this is written. I have some concerns with enforcement, and I would ask or urge the voters to table this. I sympathize with these folks for sure, but I also understand what Mr. Sherwood said. The bylaws in town, in general, need to be updated. We appropriated money a little bit earlier to have a law firm look at them and update them. That is the time to do this with legal advice, forethought, and put something in place that works for the residents and addresses the problem. So if somebody calls us, we'll deal with it the best that we can. But I'll certainly tell you that the bylaws need to be updated, and that will happen. So in closing, I just urge you the voters to hold off on passing this. I will certainly help you, police department will help you with it in any way we can until we get something that's reasonable. And that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, as they say on the radio, that'll be the last word for this debate. We're going to bring the motion to a vote. The motion is to adopt the bylaw as written here in our report. It takes 2/3 to approve. All in favor of the bylaw that's been proposed? All opposed? Well, certainly the opposition has more than votes necessary to vote this down. It is rejected, 104 to 3.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the Town of Merrimac vote to amend the Town of Merrimac General Bylaws, Article 7, Junk and Secondhand License, by deleting the existing Section 5 and replacing it with the new Section 5 as above.
So you've been seconded, John? So moved and seconded that we rewrite Section 5 of our town bylaws, Article 7, Section 5, which deals with, in this case, unregistered motor vehicles. People have a copy of the language for Article 15 in front of them. The new bylaw about Section 5, unregistered motor vehicles, keeping more than one, whether it's assembled or disassembled, unless you have a license, will not be permitted unless it's within an enclosed building. Abutters, upon notice, the selectman can grant a permit for keeping more than one, not in an enclosed building, and so forth. Any questions or discussion as to this? Yes, sir. In the front. Can you get up, please?
How long? I have a motorcycle, sometimes I take it off the road.
This is keeping unregistered vehicles outside, as opposed to in sort of an enclosed place. How long? It says indefinitely.
Yeah.
More than one.
As it reads, one indefinitely. The issue is for more than one. Is that answer? Yeah.
Yes, Len?
Can I ask, how
Yeah.
is this different from the current bylaw?
The question is what is changing if we adopt this from the current bylaw?
Bob?
The answer, man?
We actually have a fee structure in place where we can start enforcing and fines. We've had numerous problems around town, and I'm not gonna ask to table it. All right? We've had, and I called away everybody that's in here, we have to call me if you want twice. So this is the best that we had to put forth, and it can work. And now we have an avenue, so the police department can enforce it, and we can enforce it, and report it.
All right, any other questions or discussion? Yes, ma'am? Well, I'll repeat it. Yeah, I'm not sure how many pieces it takes to be a disassembled car as opposed to two disassembled cars, but it includes disassembled. Yeah, it doesn't have to be put together. Yes, sir.
I guess I'd like to see a definition of enclosed building.
Can you speak in the mic, sir?
I guess I'd like to see a definition of an enclosed building. If somebody just puts up a tent around that, does that mean
Okay,
it's
the
an
question
enclosed
is
building?
what constitutes an enclosed building?
One you can't see it.
Well, what's a building? You don't know?
One you can't see it, seriously.
No, I know that what you can't see in. You can put a blanket over something you can't see in that, but,
If it meets the definition of the structure, okay, and it's closed, and you can't see it, it's not carport. Carport doesn't do it, it's not considered a structure, okay? So if it's a structure, and you can't see it, and you've got more than one unregistered vehicle in it,
so,
you can see it, and it's an unregistered vehicle, you can kind of leave it outside.
you mean it's as if it's left outside? You mean it's as if it's left outside? So if you have a window on your building, you got to have a curtain? All right. Yes, sir, in the back? Yes.
It's not farm vehicles.
How's the difference? Well, I mean, I can read you what it says here about that. It says that if your property has more than one of these vehicles, then you got to go into the selectmen, and they can approve you having more. I think the things you're talking about might be under consideration, but it just sort of sets the what they say, the threshold. Who has to go in and talk to the selectmen? People who have more than one, regardless of how big their land is. That's what they're saying here. Yeah.
Well, this is not to me, this is not to take into consideration, restrict farm and agricultural related vehicles. We're talking about motor vehicles made to travel on the highway. Well, if you got one, bring it down to the thing, apply down to the selectman's office, and we'll sure consider that.
Yes, Paul?
No, this is motor vehicles. That's not a motor vehicle.
Yes, sir. All right. Does anyone else want to speak on this? All right, we'll bring this to a vote. Take two-thirds vote for us to approve a change in the bylaws. All in favor of changing Section 5 to adopt this? All opposed? Well, the two-thirds are there. I see 8 people against and 100 are for it. So that this bylaw change is approved.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend the official zoning map of the town of Merrimac to properly show the location of the Rural Agricultural Preservation Overlay District to conform to the language as stated in the text of Article 12, Rural Agricultural Preservation Overlay District, Section 12.2, applicability.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we amend the official zoning map of the town to that apparently there's a mistake in the location of a residential agricultural preservation overlay district where the map doesn't match up with the language in the bylaw. Is there any discussion as to this? Or any question? All right, bring this to a vote. It requires two-thirds to approve. All in favor of fixing the map? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the Merrimac zoning bylaw, Article 19, Site Plan Review, Section 19.10, Review Schedule, with the addition of the following wording at the end of the subsection 19.10.2. The board shall notify by regular mail the abutters on a certified abutters list within 300 feet of the property line of the parcel shown on the plan, indicating the date, time, and location of the site plan review public meeting at least 10 days prior to that meeting.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we amend the Merrimac zoning bylaw to provide for proper notice, mail written notice of site plan review to abutters. Anyone have any questions about that? This would make a requirement that there be notice given out to the abutters. Apparently, it's not required yet. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say that I feel this is very important to go through. We had a situation on Bartlett Street where there was going to be an ice cream stand right next to my house. I'm keeping home and it was 10 Bartlett Street. And had it not been for word of mouth, we would not have known until the ground was broken that that ice cream stand was there with lights in the neighbors' faces, noise, and everything else that goes along with it. So I just wanted to say, my piece, that I think it's important that just so that you're notified and you can get to the meeting and you can voice your opinion at the meeting. I think it comes with fairness for all.
Any other comments or questions? We'll bring this to a vote then. This requires two-thirds to approve. All in favor of an amendment to require notice? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Town of Merrimac General Bylaws, Article 3, Section 1, concerning appointment of the members of the Finance Committee as follows. The moderator shall, in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 16, at the annual town meeting, appoint a Finance Committee annually to consist of not more than 9 citizens of the town. The majority of the members appointed, but no fewer than 4 such members, shall constitute the quorum.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to make this change to the bylaw on appointing the Finance Committee. If you see in your copy of the warrants that were posted, there's a rationale explaining this, that it makes clear that the quorum is a majority of the members who are appointed to the committee, not a majority of the 9 possible members of the committee. Are there any questions or discussion? All right, again, a 2/3 vote is required. All in favor of this change? All opposed? It is adopted unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 48, subsection 42, 43, and 44, establishing the fire department, including the appointment of fire chief, compensation, removal, and defining the powers and duties.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that in Article 19, that we accept state law and approve establishing a fire department with a fire chief, compensation, removal, defining the powers, and so forth and so on, as provided by state law. I think this is referred to as a strong fire chief statute.
Correct.
Any people have any questions or discussion about this? All right, then we'll bring this to a vote. All in favor of undertaking this state law? Any opposed? It is approved unanimously. Hmm? Oh, it's 1 minute, half an hour. All right. Folks, we have three articles left, 2 that I think are pretty straightforward, and 1 that may involve a little bit of discussion. Because of our quorum, I suggest that we take the 2 routine things up, and then we can spend the rest of the meeting on the Article 20. People approve that?
21?
All right, why don't we take a motion up on Article 21 then?
I move the town vote to amend Section 13 of the Pentucket Regional Agreement by adding at the end of the new section as above.
Is there a second?
Second. Sorry.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve a change to the Pentucket Regional Agreement, adding language that has been submitted by the school committee to us concerning how capital expenses are allocated and paid. People have any questions about this change? Or any discussion about it? All right, then, all in favor of the proposed amendment to the regional agreement? All opposed? It is approved unanimously.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend the 4th sentence of Section 13 of the Pentucket Regional Agreement, incurring of debt as above.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded again that there be an amendment in the Pentucket Regional Agreement concerning incurring of debt. You notice we've had some votes about that tonight. Whereas state law says that town meetings can meet within 60 days and approve or disapprove debt or incurring debt, this would allow towns, only the towns that are affected. Sometimes this borrowing only affects 1 town. People have any questions or discussions about this amendment? Yes, ma'am. The question is that the other 2 towns? Yes, it takes the vote of to change the agreement. It's not just for Merrimac, it's for West Newbury and Groveland too. Are there any other questions or discussion? All right, all in favor of this amendment? All opposed? It is approved unanimously. We return to Article 20.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for the act for the enactment of a special law to change the elected town clerk to an appointed town clerk as above.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we authorize the selectmen to petition the general court with the state legislature to enact a special law concerning the town clerk of Merrimac that would change the position from being elected to an appointed clerk as soon as the law is passed. Does anyone want to speak to this? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to urge town meeting to vote this out of the ballot. We as citizens have the right to vote. This vote is going to be taken away from us if we pass this. The democratic process is to elect a town clerk. Of 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts, 254 are elected. 79 are appointed. That says something. If it's good enough for the rest of the Commonwealth, it should be good enough for Merrimac. Also, the city of London has been electing a town clerk since 1311 and continues to do so.
That's the London in England, I take it. Yes, sir. Yes. If you come up by the mic, I think people want to hear these discussions.
Matt Schweisberg, High Street. Couple of thoughts. First, I much prefer to trust, as this gentleman was just saying, the vetting process involved with an election. The articles you see in the paper about the backgrounds of people and the will of the people to actually elect the person they believe is most qualified. I trust the will of hundreds, if not thousands, of citizens in Merrimac rather than 3 individuals who make up the Board of Selectmen. It's not to disrespect them, but it's to say that what goes on in the board, who gets interviewed, what happens, all of that winds up being hidden, and it's not a transparent process. And I much prefer it to be a public process and for citizens to be able to come and on a candidate's night ask questions and the like. I think that has worked very well to date. And as Pat herself has said, clerks are not born, they're made. And I think that's quite true.
Sure, Rick?
Thank you for bringing up a couple of points that I wanted to segue into.
You're fine there.
Am I fine there? Okay, thank you. It is a transparent process. What I've been speaking about for some time is to give the example of when we had to go out and hire a new police chief. The Board of Selectmen appointed a committee of citizens that were interested in participating in the process. What they did is they worked with a consultant that was hired by the Board of Selectmen to start the process of advertising for for interested candidates. We put together, with the consultant, a list of qualifications that we felt were important for, in this case, the new police chief to have. The consultant worked with the citizens group in going through all of the various applications that came in and vetting that process down to a select number that met the basic qualifications and conducted the interview process. At the end of that, as with the police chief search, there were 3 candidates that were brought forward to the Board of Selectmen for final interviews. And then we made a decision as to, based on what the recommendations of the citizens group were, working with the consultant and the recommendations of the 3 members of the Board of Selectmen, who we were going to offer the position to. We envision that the same process is going to take place when the fateful day comes that Pat decides to retire and we need to replace her. Now, It's very interesting to show the statistics as to how many cities and towns have an appointed versus an elected town clerk. But at the end of the day, we have to be concerned about what are our requirements here in Merrimac. Being able to replace Pat is going to be, let's face it, nearly impossible. I mean, she's a townie. She knows the background of the community. She knows practically everybody in it. But at the end of the day, it's a professional position. We've been listening to her, we being the Board of Selectmen, for several years, as to what is involved in anybody holding that job. And we felt that an election is not the right process in order to be able to replace her. Sure, candidates' nights are great, but if anybody's been paying attention over the last several years to the election process here in town, it's very seldom that there are multiple candidates for any position. Furthermore, oftentimes, qualified candidates are not interested in running an election. They'd be more interested in filling out an application, sending in their resume, and becoming a part of a normal hiring process. So the election does not necessarily secure the fact that, that you're going to have the type of hiring pool that you would like to have. So we're not trying to take we're not trying to defeat the democratic process at all. But what we're trying to do is envision what's the next natural, logical step in being able to continue to have the professional services available in the town clerk's office. And let's face it, if there are qualified candidates that would be willing to run an election, they'd be more than willing to send in their application and their resume and become part of the hiring process. So if anything, we're increasing the pool of potential candidates, not reducing it.
Yes, sir.
With all due respect to the impartiality of the process that you just brought forth, that impartiality should be in here as to how we will appoint if this was to go through. But currently, the town clerk, as voted in by the residents, is our employee, the town of Merrimac. If you appoint a town clerk, she will be your employee. And I do think that defeats the democratic process.
Well, that's a very interesting point. What that boils down to is accountability, correct? Now, if you're, any of us as elected officials, you're not satisfied with the job that we're doing, well, we sit in these positions, including the town clerk, for 3 years. So what do? Do you wait 3 years, or however long it is, until the next election cycle, in the hopes that somebody else is going to be able to come out and try to replace the town clerk that you're dissatisfied with? That's an important point. Or do you use one of the bylaws we created a few years ago, which is a recall petition, which again is we've never done it, but again it makes the process of accountability a little bit more difficult. And let's face it, again, those of us that are working in town hall on a day-to-day basis are in a very good position to know whether or not a person is working out or not. I hate to say it, but in the 2 terms that I've been sitting here, not only have I had the pleasure of being able to hire somebody, but I've also been on the other side of it and having to recommend termination. It's not pretty, but that's what you elect us to do. And we're paying attention to how the town clerk's position has evolved over decades, but more recently, at least in my case, over the last several years, in being able to feel comfortable enough to come to you all with this recommendation.
How long has it been since Merrimac has actually had an incompetent town clerk that would require removal? Has it ever happened?
I'm not sure that's really the point.
It's not really relevant.
Well, okay.
But we have had other employees that we have hired and we have signed contracts with, and we have had to go ahead and we've had to dismiss them because they were not living up to the job performances. You know? So it's not necessarily an issue that Pat's doing a bad job. You know, it's quite the contrary, because this is written in such a way that she can keep the job for as long as she wants to.
Sir, just,
No, I mean, I think I'm trying to answer it as best as I can for you. I mean, Pat's been sitting in the job for an awfully long time, and others before her. But we're in the 21st century, and the job has certainly changed quite a bit. And again, with respect to the number of cities and towns that still elect rather than appoint, at the end of the day, we have to be concerned about what we feel is in the best interest of the town of Merrimac, and being able to put a qualified individual into that seat when Pat decides to retire.
okay. Yes? All right, the comment is regarding with section 2 of the, which is between 1 and 3, and there's also a section 4 that's also number 3. Section 2 provides that the town clerk, provided that that clerk holds no other office involving the receipt or disbursement of money, may be also appointed, I guess, to the position of town accountant, provided, however, that under such circumstances, service in both capacities will be deemed a single position. What's the question? Why is that language in there?
Well, because now is certainly the time to do that, and there is always the possibility that our town accountant may move on, and we may feel at that particular point in time that it's in the best interest of the operation of town hall to have that as a combined position, which again is not a bad thing for the sitting town clerk, you know. Again, assuming that they have the skill sets necessary, you know, through the hiring and the vetting process, to be able to take on those additional duties if necessary. You know, we've never been in a position, again, so as long as I've been sitting here, that we would give somebody additional responsibilities without giving them some additional money, which kind of brings me to another point that's been brought up. You know, we've gone through an extensive salary compensation study that you folks approved and financed. And one of the positions that required a rather large jump in salary was the town clerk's position. You know, personally, long overdue. Glad that it happened. Two very important reasons for that needing to be done. First, Pat deserved the money, no question about it. But secondly, we're also paying attention to the fact that, again, at some point, Pat's going to retire. We need to have a competitive salary in place. We do now. There may be some that are going to try to convince you that we don't, but that's not correct. We may, you know, a scale has been established setting the salary. Now, is the salary in that scale near the bottom? Yeah. Was it a significant increase getting to that? Yeah. You know, but we have a salary in place that would be able to attract qualified candidates.
Could I just add one other thing, please?
Well, let me come around. Okay. Yes, sir.
Robert Huey, Birch Mill Road. I think our clerk, I think this issue here should be voted down. Our clerk has worked 26 years in this job, and her job is in jeopardy unless this is written someplace that she was elected till 2016. And we can't, she was voted by the people of this town. And I think if there was something in here that said it's 2016, end of her term, or at the time she retired, then I'd vote for this thing. But otherwise, it's out.
Well, I respect what you're
Rick-
saying, but it's incorrect. No,
Yeah, Rick,
How am I
at least
incorrect,
get
sir?
recognized.
well, let me read it to you. May I?
Go ahead.
The act ensures that the current town clerk will serve as the first appointed town clerk until the remainder of her elected term or the resignation or retirement, whatever is sooner.
Is that in the rationale, or is that in the language of the?
It's right
article?
there.
It's in the rationale or in the language of the article? Are you reading?
It's in the language. This is the reason why we have, there's two ways to go about this. You can just adopt state law that addresses how you go about this, or you can create special legislation. We've elected to go the special legislative route in order to make sure that Pat's job is not in jeopardy whatsoever. That was first and foremost on our minds when we decided we were going to move down this path. So,
Say that here, sir.
Yeah, we did it that way specifically to protect Pat's position.
Well, Section 3, the long Section 3 says, notwithstanding what we're doing about converting the position, on the effective date of this statute, this act, the position of elected clerk shall be abolished, and the term of the elected incumbent terminated. The elected incumbent shall thereupon become the first appointed town clerk and shall serve in such a capacity for a period of time equivalent to the remainder of the elected term, or sooner resignation or retirement. Thereafter, appointments will be made as per Section 1. So this, Section 3 only exists to deal with the present clerk.
So
But
you're
what it does is what it says is what it does. If there's something more it needs to say, then it can be amended.
All right. You're saying that she can serve her term till 2/16?
yes, yes.
Or longer.
Or longer if she wishes to stay in it.
Or at the time of her retirement?
Right.
Well,
Is that right?
it says
Yes.
she will be appointed and she shall serve. What that means, we have what the selectmen say it means right now. She shall serve until her term is up, or she retires, whichever is sooner.
I know there's been some misinformation about that spread through town that's just plain wrong. And this was written specifically this way to protect Pat's position. But there's been rumors going around, talk going around that this was meant to remove Pat, and it's not. We're lucky to have Pat. We realize that. Going forward in the future, we've watched this position, and we feel like this has become what you might call a skilled position in town, akin to finance director, akin to police chief, akin to fire chief, akin to DPW director, akin to light department manager. It's a skilled position. Different, certainly, but we are a bit uncomfortable going forward, looking to at the time of her retirement or end of her term, just letting this position to fall to whoever might run for office. If you know anything about elections in this town in the recent 15, 20 years, seldom do you have more than one candidate. People are very reluctant to run for office in Merrimac.
You had 2 last time, sir.
No, it
Okay,
didn't.
but
I'd like to.
I just want to add.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Yes.
Yeah, we had 2 then, but very common in town it's tough getting people to run for office. But we feel reluctant to let this position go to whoever might, single person who might run next time. They might not be any qualifications at all, but if they're the only one running, they're going to get the position, and we're going to have to deal for 3 years with the consequences of whoever the heck wins the popularity contest on election day. And there may be only one. Pat made a very impassioned plea last year when she was running for office on candidates' night. Made a very impressive argument that the town needs someone of fine education and experience and knowledge that someone such as her has, and she was absolutely right. It's a great benefit to have someone who has, some fine qualifications, and that's the tenor of what we're trying to do here. We want to have, looking forward, we want to have someone that's going to come into that office with as much qualifications as we can get. And we certainly want it to be somebody from town. We feel like if it's open to application and resumes and being vetted before citizens committees and the selectmen and what do you call those guys that find them for you?
Consultant?
Yeah, the consultant, that, we will come a lot closer to finding someone who really fits the job. And I think in Merrimac, you'll get a lot more candidates for that job if it's a for-hire job than if it's an elected job. And you're right in the sense, you're right that many more towns have elected town clerks. But if you took those numbers 15 years ago, they would be almost totally elected. The direction that is going for town clerks, the momentum and the trend is towards appointed town clerks. And that's why it's become more of a professional position. Some town clerks are still part-time, I mean, very part-time. And they can get along with, in really small towns with a minimum town clerk, I guess.
No, just hold on just a sec, please. I wanted just to correct a couple things that have gone on. Not everybody who stands for election in town is not a skilled person to hold that job, okay? So you run down a list of people that we hire. It also includes we elect people who are also our skilled people and are expected to have skills. I can't speak for everyone, but I know that the moderators do have skills, and it's something that's necessary. Second, not everybody gets elected for a 3-year term, and in Merrimac, we still elect some people, myself included, every year. We used to elect more people every year, but we sort of moved away from that in order to allow people to grow in their jobs and to sort of have a benefit of some learning curve and from experience. So, be fair, at least, in that description. It doesn't really help us make the decision that we are faced with tonight, but we do elect people with skills. We appoint people with skills. That kind of a thing doesn't seem to be really much of a help in what you're going to get.
Well, I don't think I was trying
No, I'm not
trying to deceive anybody.
No, it's not a question of deceiving. It's just what it is. I know our bylaws allow us to finish the debate on this article. That's why we took it up the way we did it.
There's a couple of things that I'd just like to clarify to the gentleman with the white cap. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Keith. The current election process that we have is a sacred one that I think we all truly appreciate. But the purest form of democracy is sitting right here in this room. It's not even at the ballot box, because a lot of the people that go to vote, they don't really know everything. But you people that come out time and again, you know what's going on in your community. You really care. And seriously, my hat's off to all of you, because it's not easy to come out, on a night where you've got to get up and work the next day. But the process of electing a clerk came down to a couple of problems for me. First of all, I don't know if you are aware, but the town clerk decides whatever hours they want to work. We're really fortunate that we have someone that's so dedicated that she has chosen to work as many hours as she does, comes in an evening, will even come in on a Saturday if you can't get things done. She is amazing. But that's not to say the next town clerk would come in and have that same kind of work ethic. They might, we don't know. But another important thing that really came home for me also was when we were doing the salary study, it's not required of the town to set anything for the town clerk. So in the past, the town clerk would have to come forward and essentially beg for whatever salary, because we are not the appointing authority for that person. But we recognized the position for what it was and what we were going to be looking at in the future, and decided to include that position. We asked our finance director, Carol McLeod, to look around in the community similar to our own and see what was happening there, to find out a job description, so that that job description, which is available to anybody that wants to know, that study was done working with Pat, so we have all of the information needed. It was done professionally. We're ready to move forward with that should she retire. This is not being done in a closet. It's totally open. Anybody can look at any of this, and it's available to you. All you have to do is call up and say, hey, what do you need to do to be a town clerk? There are classes, Pat has said, that you can take. So if you wanted to be town clerk and you're not familiar with that position, there are school classes. She has made that very clear, that people can attend and learn. We're just hoping that by being able to have this person come forward with their qualifications and be interviewed through the due process, like we've done all of the other positions for department heads in town, which include the Council on Aging Director, for instance, the librarian. All of the department heads are going through this. I don't think that it's a question of removing anybody from the due process or from the electoral abilities of anybody sitting here. You do go to the ballot box and vote for the selectmen. You have that opportunity to come and complain at any meeting. You have that opportunity to write letters about things that you disagree with if you don't like what's being done. It's on television, it's on the cable. You have the ability. That's what's great about selectmen versus a mayor, for instance. You have the strength to make decisions at any point. We're trying to make something better.
All right. Yes, sir.
No.
Okay, I'll get you next. All right. Do the selectmen, I mean, is the salary next going to change from what's been appropriated for this year?
Oh,
So it's about $25,000.
45.
Oh, 45.
I can address that if I may. I'd like to address, I prepared something ahead, basically 4 points that have brought up. You've heard some of them tonight. You've heard or read some that was said at the candidates' night and also at the selectmen's meeting and in the paper. Okay? So I'm going to just briefly address those 4 points. Point A, clerk must be appointed now because the job is more complex and too important to be left to you, the voters. My impending retirement is really being used as an excuse to change your fundamentally change your form of government. Some feel that losing an experienced clerk needs to find a professional clerk with experience to replace me. Experience is great. It's a very important factor, but it shouldn't be the overriding factor. Okay, an explanation from Mr. Lloyd down the table. I did run on big signs that said experience matters, and it does. But the reason that I ran on experience primarily was because it was the thing that was different between myself and my opponent. I had more experience. And I did push the experience thing at the candidates' night. When you're in an election, you push your strength. But one thing I did say at the candidates' night, and I want to correct Mr. Lloyd, is that I said that my teaching experience, my bachelor's degree in teaching, and my graduate work in administration in no way trained me for this position. I thought it was helpful, but I think any education and all education that anyone gets is very helpful in different aspects, and you can apply them many things in many ways. But you don't go to school to be a town clerk, and you can't take town clerk courses from the Town Clerks Association unless you are a clerk. Okay? I had to just kind of add that in there. But much of what appears to be my experience is really institutional knowledge or institutional memory. Basically, what this is if you work in one position at one municipality, one institution, one company, whatever, you learn a lot. I'm able to remember and be able to find and locate information quickly, basically because of this institutional memory. I remember the stuff that's happened over the 27 years I've been there. No new elected or appointed clerk is going to have that kind of institutional memory. Don't confuse the two things, experience for institutional memory. We've heard the election process kind of likened to a popularity contest tonight. I don't feel that that's true. Best word I can think of to say is hogwash. This town has elected 8 clerks in 138 years. Some have been more competent than others. I'd like to think maybe 1 or 2 have been worse than me. I know 2 have been better. Some have served for as short as 1 year, 1 for 35 and a half years. I come in a distant third. Can I guarantee that you can elect a great clerk? No. Can this board guarantee they can appoint a great clerk? No. I think that even the Board of Selectmen will admit that some appointments that have been made in the past decade have turned out to be less than satisfactory. But the clerks that you've elected have served well, they've served with integrity and relatively scandal-free. And I happen to think that the voters in this community are smart enough and take voting seriously enough to be able to pick out the most qualified candidate. And I think that track record of 8 in 138 years speaks for itself. None of them have ever been impeached or recalled. You could do that. I know, I have terrible allergies to boot. So it's very dry in here. People will come forward for this position. I'll tell you right now, if I had not run last year, I know one of the candidates obviously would have run. She was on the ballot. But I also feel very strongly that we're 2 municipally working in clerks' offices people, at least one of which I'm sure would have come forward, perhaps both of them. But neither of them wanted to run against an existing clerk they felt had the right to finish her term and retire. I was told that by one. This is not like some of the other positions in town. It's a job. It actually pays money, and people will run for this job. And I think that voters are able to find the correct clerk. An appointed clerk is not going to have to live in your community. Can say all they want that they're going to appoint someone from town. They don't have to. An appointed clerk does not have to live here. They don't have to be invested in your town. They only have to be invested in their job. A lot has been said about the complexity and difficulty of this job. Yes, the job is more complex. I'll tell you why. It's complex not because of the duties that the clerk holds. The duties that I hold in 2014, are basically the same exact duties that Bailey Sergeant held in 1876. Clerks keep track of stuff. They keep track of important stuff, but this is what they do. What's changed and made the system more complex is technology, okay? Technology has really changed the whole thing. But we keep track of vital records, elections, keeping the voting list clean and correct, all the same things that Bailey did. But technology has changed. This doesn't mean, it doesn't require an appointment with vast criteria to master technology. Face it, if you can elect anyone 10 years younger than me, they're going to have more ability with this technology than I ever will. In fact, the overriding reason why I want to retire is because of the technology. It's the reason that I plan to retire from a job that I've loved for many years. This old dog doesn't learn new tricks quite as quick as she used to, and that's the problem. Technology is something now that so many more people are so much more capable of than I am. Doesn't require a whole lot more than that. Accountability. You've heard it said that I'm not accountable to the Board of Selectmen, and I'm not. I am accountable to you. I have a 3-year contract. Every clerk does. But if you don't have a clerk that's responsible to the community, we know we do that at our peril. 4 years ago, there was a clerk who had been in office the same length of time as I had, pretty close to it. He was going on to his either 3rd or 4th term. He decided to get really cute with some of the stuff he did in his office. This was in a neighboring community. I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to embarrass either the outgoing clerk or the clerk that serves there now. Someone decided this is unacceptable. The office is being run in an unacceptable way. And citizens got together and said, we need to run someone that is more accountable, keeps the office open the hours that we want, does the kind of things that we feel need to be done. Someone stepped forward. She won. She won an election just like I did, with no criteria, with the same experience that I had, none, as town clerk. If you do not serve the people, you do that at your own peril. I know when election time rolls around every 3 years, somebody out there could run against me. Somebody out there could be very good. And if I was not serving the majority of the people, and the majority of the people didn't like it, they could put me out of office. And I would deserve to be put out of office if I was not being attentive to your needs, not coming in the hours that have to be done to do it. There's a new clerk in this other town now, going on to her 4th year. She's keeping hours that they like and obviously serving her community well. Something was said about cost, criteria and cost. Okay, by its very nature, once you set criteria, it's gonna cost you more. I don't care what you do. It's the nature of the beast. I don't know what criteria may be set, but let's say something like you want a BS or a master's and 3 to 5 years as a municipal clerk. That sounds pretty reasonable in this day and age. Guess what? It's gonna cost you more. I haven't had an awful lot of time because this is my busy season to look into this, but I took a very quick look and I tried to compare salaries of both types of elected and appointed clerks as closely as possible to our community. I used 3 elected clerks and only 2 appointed clerks. I'll tell you why I only used 2 appointed clerks. And this kind of goes to something that she was saying about it's coming more and more why some are appointed. I'm going to explain why in a minute, why some clerks are appointed in different communities and some are elected. What I did, I couldn't find any more than 2 clerks appointed that fit our geographical area, our population, except for one who would fit our population but also holds another position as town council. I didn't think that was fair to compare it to apples and oranges to oranges. Because all of the other appointed clerks I could find serve in larger towns or cities. And we're going to get to that in a minute, too. But here's what I found. All examples that I took, both elected and appointed, represent towns with a population within 1,000 to 1,500 of Merrimac. All are members of the North Shore Clerks Association. They represent service from 4 years to 14 years of service. One of the elected clerks, the lowest makes $50,000. The next one is $52,000, and the highest one is $53,500. Of 2 appointed clerks, the first appointed is a new clerk. She's only been in office for 6 months. She was, however, the assistant town clerk in that community for 3 years prior to that. When their long-serving clerk retired, she was moved up to the clerk's position at a starting salary of $55,500. The experienced clerk she replaced was at $68,200. The next has 3 years of experience with a salary of $76,500. While I am extremely grateful, you have no idea how grateful, as the Board of Selectmen was telling you, that they put in a professionally done survey for a pay equalization. It made it possible, and I got a good bump. You know, all of you can look at your back reports and discover that I got over a $10,000 salary increase. And I'm very grateful. It allows me to be able to retire, okay? However, and that means that my salary for fiscal year 14 was $43,900. Their salary parameters, their low and their high for the clerk's position came in at 51 to a high of 58. Right now, every elected clerk in your area and my 3 that I chose make $5,000 more than me. And I think you can see how much more the 2 elected that I chose make. It's going to cost you more, and it needn't, okay? The appointed clerks usually serve in much larger cities and towns. 75% of all the elected clerks serve in small communities and small towns. That's because, my last point, I think it's very important, serving in a small town, that clerks be elected. Cities have full-time mayors, staff, and they have a city council form of government. In Merrimac, like most small towns, the chief executive officers, which in our case are the Board of Selectmen, are elected, and they're part-time officials who generously give their time and certainly deserve our thanks and appreciation, and they certainly always have mine. But they're not there all the time. Guess who is? The clerk. She's there to help townspeople navigate the town government. She's the go-to person that can answer your questions. If she doesn't know the answer, she'll find out, or she'll find someone that can find out for you, and she'll let you know. She can give out information impartially and without taking sides. That's what she does. She acts as a sounding board. Citizens feel they can come in and gripe to me without having to do it to the Board of Selectmen. And I will listen, I will smile, I will try to make them feel better, I'll commiserate with them, but I don't have to take a side on an issue. This is something Board of Selectmen have to do. The very nature of their jobs means they have to take stands on very difficult issues. When you do that, you're going to be unpopular with somebody. You have to be, because there's always somebody on each side. We clerks have the wonderful perk of not having to decide any unpopular issues. We just need to inform and act as that sounding board. We can, as elected clerks, also have the advantage of saying no, firmly and without equivocation, to a demand made by a Board of Selectmen that, for example, is contrary to what we feel is the responsibility of our governance by state statute. There are many state statutes we have to follow. I have had that experience happen to me, and I was able to think of nothing concerning my performance, my salary, whether or not my contract could be renewed, when I was asked, pretty much told, to do something that was contrary to a state statute, I just stood there and said, no, this isn't going to happen. I didn't have to think about it. An appointed clerk very well might have to think about it. Town clerks, by the very nature of their job, tend to be impartial. In the town of Merrimac, you have never seen a political sign for a candidate on the yard of a town clerk. You've never seen a sign in their yard telling you, urging you to vote yes or no on any kind of a question on a ballot. It just doesn't happen, and it won't. An elected clerk speaks for you because she works for you. Some have said that being appointed is in the best interest of the clerk. It protects you from protects me from you, the electorate, and you are judged and evaluated by an immediate supervisor that works with you daily rather than a fickle populace. I disagree. I've taken my chances day by day, week by week, year by year with the voters. I've always known if I didn't serve, I could be out. You always know the possibility exists. I sit up here and I don't believe that the Board of Selectmen sponsored this article because anything that I have done, but that one or more felt that it was good for the town. This is not a vendetta by either side. It's simply a very large difference of opinion. I am sure throughout our town's history, other administrations have said, times have changed. By God, it's the 20th century. Why are we still electing a clerk? It wasn't true then, and it's not true now.
It's the 21st.
I meant, they said it in the 20th. It is now the 21st. I'm sure that back in 1930, when a long-serving clerk got done, this might have been the cry hanging around town hall. We got to change. My God, let's get modern. It's 1935. For heaven's sakes, we're still doing what we did in 1876. Again, it wasn't true then, and it isn't true now. They have also stated that the transition between, evidently, my incredibly superior qualities, which I'm astonished by the praise and grateful for it. However, I obviously don't deserve it. If I had a dime for all the mistakes I've made in the last 27 years, I could have retired a whole lot long time ago, probably with more than I'm going to make now. But they think that the transition might be too difficult if it's an elected clerk. I disagree. I have publicly stated at the Selectmen's meeting, I did it at Candidates Night, and I'll do it again tonight, that I will stay as long and help any newly elected clerk for as long as that clerk or the administration or Board of Selectmen feels it's necessary to make that transition smooth and successful. I tell you that again tonight. Any newly elected clerk that steps into that office. When I was elected in 1988, the outgoing clerk handed me the keys and said, good luck. I would never do that to anyone at all. It was a terrible sinking sensation and one of, what have I done? Okay? Statutorily, the clerk only has to stay for 10 days. It's basically because they're responsible for certifying that last election. And that's the period that you have to do it for. I would not do that. Again, I will stay for as long as it takes, for as many hours it takes, and whatever it takes with any newly elected clerk to see that she is on a path to make the succession, the transition smooth and successful. Or he. Well, you know, when I originally wrote this, I kept saying he/she. I had that.
I think we're ready to bring it to a vote.
I thought it got to be kind of silly to say that. Lastly,
question.
Lastly, I'm going to be retiring. I'm going to be out of this job just as the 7 clerks before me. I have no horse in this race at all. I truly don't. But I do have I have a deep care about this community. It's my hometown. I've been here a long time. And I feel very strongly that the system that we have now is something you should hold and hold tightly. An elected clerk is your clerk. Please keep your clerk. Thank you.
right, we have time for one, what did you had your hand up? What is that you want to say, sir?
You're out of line.
Excuse me.
Seriously.
All right. Thank you. You know, we have to be careful, and we've done a good job of it, that we're not singling out any individual, you know, as far as, you know, all of us have opinions as to the kind of work that somebody does for the town. And we leave it at that. This decision here is, as Pat said, is made for someone who none of us knows. You know, whoever it is going to be the next clerk in the town of Merrimac. And we know what we want to do. We want to take a vote and decide how we're going to decide who the next clerk is going to be. That's what this article is about. It's time to make a decision. So we're going to bring this to a vote. On Article 20, there's a motion that we petition the state legislature, the general court, to enact a special law, which has been read to us, concerning the appointment in the effective with the passage of the law of the town clerk instead of the elected system. On advice of town council, this takes a 2/3 vote to approve this petition. So I ask all in favor of an appointed town clerk system, please raise your hand. All opposed to an appointed town? Okay, regardless of the count, this motion fails. The vote is 87 to 25. Huh?
And this is, you know, and this is, again, pure democracy. We need to be able to have these conversations together to get all the information out so that we all have a chance to hear each other and make an intelligent decision. You heard from us, we heard from you. You know, that's all we can ever hope for, and all we can ever ask for. And Ralph, don't leave.
Okay. Ralph, is there a motion to adjourn the annual town meeting?
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you very much for your patience tonight, folks.